The WNBA might be headed straight into the biggest showdown in its history, and one of the league's most searched players just summed up the entire pay situation in one word. Barely. Barely. But we're still surviving. When Sophie Cunningham said that on a viral comedy show and then laughed off a question about needing OnlyFans as a backup plan, it wasn't just a throwaway joke. It was a pressure valve releasing in public at exactly the same time the Players Union is quietly preparing for something the WNBA has never seen before, a real possibility of a strike. Everything in this video is based on publicly available interviews, reports, and social content, and is meant for entertainment and informational purposes only. Let's step back and look at where things stand. We're now a few months into the WNBA offseason. This is normally the time when players scatter to rest, rehab, play overseas, or build their brands. Instead, there's a strange, heavy quiet hanging over everything. That silence is coming from the one place you don't want it when a league is growing fast. Between the WNBPA, the Players Association, and Commissioner Kathy Engelbert's office, where a new collective bargaining agreement is supposed to be getting done. Instead of updates and optimism, what we've gotten is nothing. No breakthrough. No framework. No, we're close. The players feel that. Fans feel it. And last week, things stopped being subtle. The WNBPA officially voted to give its executive committee the power to call a strike when necessary. That doesn't mean players are walking off the court tomorrow. There's no date circled in red where the season just collapses. But it is a warning shot and not a quiet one. It says clearly that the players are tired of operating in a system where the maximum salary you can earn from the league itself is still hovering around $250,000 a year. In a vacuum, that number might sound decent. But put it next to what's happening around the WNBA, and you can see why frustration is boiling over. The league is securing bigger media deals. Expansion is on the horizon. Attendance and ratings are climbing, and names like Caitlin Clark, Paige Buchers, and Angel Reese are pulling in more attention than women's basketball has ever seen. These stars are able to tap into that momentum and turn it into massive endorsement deals. True generational wealth from sponsors, shoes, commercials, and social reach. And yet, the foundation of the league, the actual paycheck for showing up to training camp and playing 40 minutes a night, feels frozen in the past. That gap between what the league is worth and what most of its players are paid is exactly what's putting the 2026 season in a precarious place. Which brings us back to Sophie Cunningham. If you had to pick one player whose 2025 storyline perfectly captures the contradictions of the WNBA right now, it might be her. She went from being known to hardcore fans as a tough, role-playing guard to becoming a full-blown internet character. Caitlin Clark's bodyguard, the fiercely competitive, physical teammate who had Clark's back every time opponents try to rough her up. Those moments, the bumps, the hard screens, the stare-downs, turned into memes, highlights, and debates. Some people love her for it. Others roll their eyes, but everybody knew who she was. And she didn't waste that opportunity. She leaned into the persona. She launched a podcast. She showed up in content everywhere. And the numbers prove how far she's taken it. According to Google's Year in Search, for 2025, Sophie Cunningham was the 7th most searched athlete in the entire United States. Top 10. In a country where you're competing against NFL superstars, NBA icons, Olympic champions, MMA fighters, and more, she was the only woman in that top 10 list. Think about that. One of the most searched athletes in America in 2025 is a WNBA player who didn't come into the league with a massive college nil machine behind her. On paper, that kind of visibility is the dream. For the WNBA, it's gold. For brands, it's a signal. Here's someone who moves a needle. For Sophie herself, it's leverage. But that's exactly why her honesty about money hit so hard. She recently went on Caleb Presley's Sunday Conversation, which, if you've seen it, you know is a deliberately awkward, tongue-in-cheek style interview show that loves pushing weird questions and letting people react. At one point, Presley straight up asked her if WNBA players actually get paid. Her response was instant. Barely. But we're still surviving. That line ricocheted across social media. Not screamed. Not dressed up in complicated language. Just a blunt, 3-second summary from someone whose face is literally in Google's top search list. Then, because it's Sunday Conversation, and they're always going to go there. Presley cracked a joke about whether she'd ever think about starting an OnlyFans as a backup plan, especially with her being a free agent right now. That's the sense of humor the show is built on, pushing absurd scenarios and seeing how people deflect. Sophie didn't take the bait in any crude way. She laughed, played along just enough to keep the bit going, and then gently pivoted back to talking about real plans for her future. But the entire exchange underscored a serious point. The fact that someone can even joke about a top-searched WNBA player needing to go to a subscription platform as Plan B is a reflection of how underpaid the core job still is. The unspoken math behind that moment is simple. Women like Caitlin Clark, Paige Buchers, and Angel Reese can secure millions from Nike, Gatorade, State Farm, or whomever. They've got social follower counts in the millions, TV features, and cultural reach. Their WNBA salary is almost an afterthought in their total income. Sophie Cunningham has built a different kind of value. She doesn't have the same college legacy or national commercials yet, but she's turned her on-court edge and personality into a digital brand that clearly gets clicks. Her podcast has an audience. Google literally says people are searching her name like crazy. In a rational market, someone like that would be earning a salary from their league that reflects that influence. Instead, she's on a viral show saying, "We're still surviving," as the league's maximum salary stays closer to $250,000 than the kind of number you see even for bench players in men's leagues. That's why the WNBPA strike authorization can't just be brushed off as posturing. It's not only about the absolute dollars at the very top. It's about the entire structure and what it says to the rank-and-file players who don't have shoe deals, who don't have viral interviews, who don't get to be Caitlin's bodyguard in front of national cameras. Because if someone as visible as Sophie is saying, barely, what do you think is like a few notches down the roster? The phrase, foundational pay structure remains stuck in the past, is not just rhetoric. It shows up in dozens of small ways. Players taking overseas contracts in the winter, not because they want to, but because they have to. Veterans bouncing around on minimum deals that don't provide real security. Role players who, despite being some of the best in the world, are still juggling side hustles to feel financially stable. The league likes to talk, and fairly, to some extent, about the progress being made, better charter flight usage, improved accommodations for some games, expanding media coverage. All of that matters, and no one is dismissing it. But when your CBA still caps salary at a level that makes your most marketable players, say, barely surviving, you're going to have a problem convincing the union that you're moving fast enough. Sophie Cunningham standing up in this moment, using her attention to highlight that gap, is part of a much broader pattern. Players are no longer afraid to call out the business side of the league. They're done just saying, thank you, and taking whatever's offered. And it's not just a few vocal people on the fringes. The WNBPA doesn't throw around the idea of a strike lightly. That kind of vote is a collective decision. It means a majority of the league is willing, at least in theory, to risk losing short-term income to force a better deal that could benefit current players and those who come after them. So where does Sophie's joke-laced honesty lead us? On one hand, it highlights the scary reality behind the scenes. Being a social media star doesn't magically pay your rent. Podcasting doesn't come with benefits. You can be trending on Google and still be staring at a contract that doesn't match your impact or the hours you put in year-round to stay at that level. On the other hand, it also shows players are fully aware of their leverage. Cunningham knows she's not just a name on a roster sheet anymore. She's a figure fans recognize, a guest who can move numbers for a show like Sunday Conversation. That kind of profile makes her voice harder to ignore when she says the pay is barely enough. It forces people outside the hardcore WNBA bubble to stop and ask, wait, how is that possible? This is where Commissioner Kathy Engelbert and the league office find themselves in a tight spot. They've successfully grown the profile of the WNBA in the past few years. They can point to numbers, charts, deals. They can show the board of governors and media execs that women's basketball is no longer something you just slot into summer downtime. But players like Cunningham, Clark, Reese, and others are now the visible face of that growth. The audience has attached itself to individual personalities as much as to teams. If those personalities start openly questioning the league's value proposition, that image of steady, happy progress cracks. No one wants the worst-case scenario. A strike in 2026, right when the WNBA finally has more eyes on it than ever before, would be painful. Newly converted fans who just discovered the league through Caitlin Clark, Angel Reese, Aya Wilson, and so on might drift away if there's no product on the floor. Networks and sponsors would be frustrated. Players would be losing checks they can't easily replace. The league's upward momentum could stall. But on the flip side, doing nothing also has a cost. If the CBA gets rubber stamped with only minor tweaks and that $250, 000-ish ceiling remains a defining number, the message to players is clear. No matter how big you get, no matter if you're 7th on Google's search list or to face an Olympic team, your base pay from this league will not keep up with your value. You'll be expected to find your real money elsewhere. Endorsements if you're lucky, overseas if you're desperate, or side hustles if you're everyone in between. That's not sustainable if the WNBA truly wants to position itself as a major, standalone professional sports league, and not just a platform for players to advertise themselves for non-WNBA opportunities. Sophie Cunningham sitting opposite Caleb Pressley and joking about Plan B might be one of the more entertaining pieces of this whole conversation. But it's not just content for laughs. It's a symptom. It's one of the league's own viral stars pointing at the base salary system and saying this isn't adding up. As fans, we're now in that tense, in-between space where nobody knows which way it's going to break. The WNBPA has quietly loaded the biggest weapon it has, the strike authorization. Kathy Engelbert and the owners know the PR blowback of an actual work stoppage in 2026 would be huge. And in between those two sides stand players like Sophie, who are simultaneously thriving off the court and underpaid on it. So the real question the WNBA has to answer, and soon, is this. Will the next CBA finally reflect the reality that its players are no longer just athletes, but major cultural figures who can drive search traffic, sell tickets, and move the needle in national conversations? Or will the gap between what the league says about its growth and what it pays its workforce grow so wide that barely surviving becomes the unofficial slogan of a failed negotiation? Let me know what you think in the comments. Do you believe the players should be willing to risk a strike to force big changes to the salary structure? Or should they lock in incremental gains now and try to protect the momentum the WNBA has built the last 2 seasons? Either way, one thing is clear. When a top 10 searched athlete in America is laughing on a viral show about needing Plan B income while the union quietly prepares for a potential walkout, you know the status quo in the WNBA isn't going to last much longer.